Hi, and welcome back to The Ethical Entrepreneur, a speaker series that introduces you to the experts in ethical and sustainable business and the tips and tricks to turn your business into a force for good. I'm Marika Timmers, and today I'm speaking with Rebecca Perkaski from Better Packaging Co., which is a carbon neutral company on a mission to design out waste. Now, with a biochemistry degree under her belt, Rebecca began her career working with multinationals to deliver complex tech implementations. As co-founder and COO of Starship IT, Australia's highest rated e-commerce shipping software, she was responsible for partnering with courier companies and expanding its market penetration. Working so closely with the rapidly expanding e-commerce industry, Rebecca became cognizant of the growing repercussions for packaging waste. She has always had an inquiring mind, a drive to design better solutions, and a passion for positive environmental change. When researching alternatives to plastic, Rebecca was highly inspired to do packaging better. This was the genesis of her collaboration with Kate Bazaar, and the Better Packaging Co. was established in March 2018. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Quite the story.
Yeah, it's been a journey, that's for sure.
So I mentioned in my intro that better packaging is all about designing out the waste. What does that actually mean, and why is it so important right now?
Yeah, look, it's incredibly important. The numbers and the stats about waste are horrifying. Something like 99% of all of the stuff that we buy gets trashed within 6 months, and 1/3 of all the food that's produced rots. Those numbers they're just terrible, and we knew that we needed to do something about it. They motivate us to make change. You know, we've been told that we have less than 12 years before the impacts of global warming are irreversible. So we know we need to act. And it's not just about reducing the greenhouse gases. The greenhouse gases cover everything. So anything that you produce has a knock-on effect. Anything that you throw out or any waste that's created, there's an incredible amount of those greenhouse gases that go along with it. So the average product can be up to 20, 30, 40 times its weight in gases that it gives off. So by reducing waste, we're also reducing the impact on not only our oceans and what ends up in landfill, but also on global warming. So it's incredibly important that we all take this really seriously.
And act on it immediately, right? Don't wait.
Yeah, we don't have the time to wait.
Yeah.
Right.
So how have you designed out waste in your business? And, you know, what kind of tips would you have for other businesses wanting to do the same?
Yeah, look, we've looked at waste reduction not only in the products that we make, that's where we started, but across our whole business. So from a business perspective, we've done really simple things and some really complex things as well. Some of the simple things that we do is we've provided keep cups for our employees, or we noticed that the girls were getting tank juices a lot. So then we went out and bought a couple of reusable tank cups. We have a compost on site. We encourage, you know, we've set ourselves up close to public transport. So we encourage people to either bike in or take public transport. We've made sure that our electricity is with a provider that's really trying to make changes in that area. So every part of our business, we're looking at ways that we can reduce. And it's almost become a bit of a game, becomes quite fun and addictive. My business partner and I are really into secondhand goods. And so about 18 months ago, we had this crazy idea. I was like, well, could we kit the whole office out in secondhand products? And at the beginning, it seemed crazy that you could do that, but we've actually managed to do that. And we source everything that we need for the office secondhand, right down to our toaster, our office chairs. And it does mean sometimes we go without. We've been trying to find a couch that would be suitable, and we're still sort of 18 months on looking for that couch, but it's just a part of what we're doing. So that's from a business perspective. And then with our products, we look at everything we do in making those products to make sure that we're designing out waste. we're following the Ellen MacArthur circular economy model. And they say that waste is a design flaw, and that 80% of all waste is created at the design stage. So we really look at what we're doing at the beginning of the life cycle of a product to see how we can reduce the impacts of waste at the end of life.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned, the product secondary and kind of the cultural stuff primary. And that, the gamification of it's quite nice too, because I'd imagine your office is quite eclectic, but I'd imagine too that, if you're noticing the ways in which your staff are engaging with, the environment around them and making slight tweaks like the tank juice cups, I would imagine then that flows over to them, and they are hopefully proactively recognizing other things that could reduce waste around their business, but also in their homes probably too, right?
Absolutely. It's the same for us. Kate and I, my business partner and I, when we started out, we had another challenge, probably April last year. No, it was April the year before. So we're nearly 2 years in now, where we said, let's try and go for the next 6 months and we don't buy anything, any new clothes. And now it's just changed the whole way we operate, and we now can't buy anything new. And then that has knocked onto the team, and we've got Tatty's a couple of doors down, and everyone goes shopping at the Tatty's, the second-hand clothing. So it changes us as well. And I think the beauty of that is you just do something simple, like a reusable container to get your sushi in, and that can have a huge impact. And then you just build on it. You don't have to solve every problem today. Yeah. You can make these small changes, and you just build on them, and they become normal, and you embed them. And then something else crops up that you notice, and then you embed that. And I think by doing it that way, it makes it really, really achievable.
Yeah. You're not drowned in the overwhelm of all of the issues.
Yeah. I mean,
that's a really good point.
Before we started this business, we were really overwhelmed, but now I have so much hope for the future. It's exciting. It's really exciting.
Fantastic. So, your packaging products, they are revolutionary because you've designed out that waste, and I know that you are constantly looking to improve that anyway. How did you manage to source and manufacture what you wanted? Because I'm imagining in the audience there are people wanting to do a similar thing, produce a product that designs out the waste, but they don't really know where to start. So what learnings can you pass on?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a journey, and it's one we're still on. So we named ourselves the Better Packaging Co. because we want to constantly be better and be bringing new products to market. And we know that what we have now will be very different from what we have in a year or two's time, because the technology is changing so quickly.
Yeah.
We do liken this industry a little bit to the Wild West because it is very new, and we're trying to substitute a product, plastic, which has been around for over 100 years now. So it's had all that time to evolve and get all the qualities that we need, which is it's durable and it's strong, and plastic has a lot of great qualities, and we're trying to replicate that in a really short time and with something that's sustainable but that still operates to the standard that everyone's become used to. So it's not easy, it is complex. And with the product that we started with, our courier satchels, our home compostable courier satchels, there is complexity to that because the seams need to be strong, you need to be able to stick labels to it, they need to be durable and tough, and they need to be able to go through the mail, but they also needed to be sustainable. So it did take us a good number of years to find something that was suitable. We did a lot of research. Where we started out wasn't where we thought we'd end. Where we started out wasn't where we ended up.
That's a theme. That's a theme in this series.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about being open to everything and pushing the boundaries a little bit. So we ended up taking a product and doing something different with it, and then we've modified it, and you just keep evolving it. So I think if you're starting out from scratch, I would do my research and do my due diligence and just go, right, well, what are all the inputs into this product? Start right at the beginning, the sourcing and the manufacturing, rather than the end of life. I would start at the top and can it be made out of a waste product? Can I find a recycled version of this? And then I would just look at each component and sort of break that down. But it doesn't have to be perfect from the beginning. I remember in the early days, I was really nervous about launching something that wasn't 100% perfect. And when I let go of that and knew that we're on that journey, it made it a lot easier because we can't get it perfect right from the beginning.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, by nature of what you're selling, the audience are hopefully somewhat forgiving in the early stages. Right?
Well, I think the technology just hasn't been there. And even I've noticed such a huge change in the last 6 to 12 months and how quickly it's all moving now compared to when we were first looking in those early days before we launched. There was a few months where we thought we were going to have to walk away from it because there just wasn't anything in the market that was fit for purpose. And now there's so many other options. So I think if you don't have it 100% right to begin with, get something to market and then just know that you're going to evolve it and be willing to change and go with that change as well.
Yeah.
And take your customers on that journey. We've been very upfront about that and said, these are the changes that we're making and we're constantly evolving.
Yeah. And is there a feedback process for your customers as well?
Yeah, we do get a lot of feedback, and we worked really closely with those, especially those early adopters. And it's something we talk about quite often is how do we get the customer more involved in that journey, and how do we engage them in that process of what they're looking for, and also weighing that up with what's most sustainable.
Yeah. I'm assuming your biochemistry degree came in handy there too.
Yeah, it's quite funny because Kate's had honours in chemistry, and when we met each other, neither of us kind of knew that about each other, and it came out when we were doing our bios. I was like, you what? And we sort of joked about it because I went into technology and she went into consulting, and we never used those degrees until now. And I think that just says something about life, that all of your experiences make up your future, and what you do at one point you may not think you need, but 20 odd years later and we're using those degrees. So
absolutely,
you're doing it for a reason.
Yeah. So you mentioned the technology is changing. What's the future? How quickly do you think we're going to get there? And
the future is so bright. Yeah, it's really exciting. There's just so many new technologies. I mean, we've got people making packaging out of algae. I was reading today about a shoe company that's making shoes out of algae as well. There's people using waste from the wine industry to make packaging. It's really neat, revolutionary things, and it's across all sectors. It's not just in the packaging sector. It's happening everywhere. And what I love about that is you've just got all these people working away and building these new technologies, and it's happening at such a great rate. Yeah. So we see a future where there is no waste, where we sort of, like, we now see the videos of people smoking on airplanes. You'll go, oh my goodness, they've got packaging that they throw in the rubbish. Rubbish bins won't exist in the future that we see, not as we know them. Everything will be hopefully repurposed, reused, regenerated, and then the last straw will be recycled. And in a world like that, it's we just don't need rubbish bins. So that's really cool. We imagine a world where your phone, every part of it's upgradable or repairable. You have a lollipop and you use that wrapper and you throw it away and it's fish food. And that's totally achievable. We're so close to that future.
Sounds like an incredible future, but the concepts of that actually come from the past too, right? So we're kind of going back to our roots where we reuse and recycle and repair.
It's the circular economy. So the Ellen MacArthur circular economy is based on nature. There is no waste in nature. Everything is used. So when a piece of fruit drops from the ground, it breaks down and gives nutrients to the soil, and then the microorganisms eat it. And it's just that beautiful full loop, and everything's kept in play. And we've just had this slight blip in the last 100 or 200 years. And we've kind of gone off-piste a little bit, and it's time just to bring us back in on the straight and narrow. And I think we'll just look back, or generations to come will look back on this time. And yeah, it was just a bit of a detour.
Their heads. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Everything in nature has a purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how we've got to live. And yeah, it's pretty exciting.
It's part of the evolution. So there's plenty of opportunity here then for the audience, those purpose-led businesses, to really make a difference and to take advantage of all of those changes in technology.
Absolutely. And I also think if it's not here now, keep researching. We were blown away before we first launched our home compostable courier satchel, which was over I think we're coming up to our 3-year anniversary in a few months. Before that order arrived, I decided to do a Google ad, and I popped an ad word up, and within minutes we were getting inquiries, and we just got so many. And Kate, my business partner, called me up. She's like, "Oh my goodness, you've got to take that down. We're just not ready." But everybody else was
it's
ready.
Performing too well.
We just couldn't believe it, and we couldn't get it down within 24 hours, and we were just getting all these inquiries. And so I started calling all of these people who had inquired, because I just wanted to chat to them, and I'd end up having these hour-long conversations with these people passionate. And I was like, "How did you see that ad so quickly?" And they said, "We were just looking. We had this constant alert on, and we were looking every day." And I think that's what people have got to do. It may not be there now, but it will be, in 6 months, a year. So just keep looking for those new innovations, and it'll get there for sure.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Mm.
Now, you conform to some of the highest standards of sustainability and some really top quality certifications. How has that journey been for you? Was it easier or harder than you anticipated?
Oh, I think it's probably one of the hardest parts of what we're doing. I think, as I mentioned before, we feel like we're in the wild west with this industry. The bioplastic industry has been around for a handful of years, and plastic's been around for over 100. So everyone's madly trying to get that industry up to the same place that plastic is. And there are people cutting quite a few corners while they do that. And so when we came into it, we made a commitment to try and create a baseline that everyone should operate to, so that by setting that standard, everyone else who sort of comes along after us, we can say this is the standard that we believe we should be operating to. And that does include the certification. So we don't sell any products that aren't certified, and they need to be certified to the governing bodies, which there's sort of 3 or 4 main bodies around the world that we get certified to. And there's a whole lot of messaging and communication that also goes along with adhering to those standards. So making sure that the end-of-life options are available and really clear on the packaging, that if you do have a certification, that it has the number associated with it, so you can really follow that chain. So you might see a lot of companies putting a certification on and there's no number that you can then go follow up and see what company that's associated with. So there's a number of things like that we do that ensures that our products are going to do what they say they're going to do, and that also the end receiver knows what to do with them at end of life. Like, we don't want our products ending up in the wrong stream. So that while we've adhered to that, a lot of other companies haven't, and that's been incredibly tough, because it just doesn't do the industry any good.
Yeah.
So we really just try and educate and communicate in that space.
Yeah. So that's your tip for others, is to be 100% transparent and educate your end consumers on what to do with it.
Yeah, I think messaging is incredibly important. In the early days with our packaging, our messaging almost took up the whole of the back of the bag, and we've been able to reduce it a bit more now because people are a bit more aware. But it was really important to us that we were educating and communicating, and that we weren't just putting something out there that might end up in the wrong stream, because you end up doing a disservice. So definitely take your customers on the journey. And I also don't overpromise. I think you underpromise and overdeliver. So be really honest and upfront about what it can and can't do. There's nothing worse than greenwashing, and so for us it was really important that we didn't do that. In fact, in our first website version, it was almost the opposite. We were almost unselling it.
Right.
That's not even a word. But it was really important to us that we made it really clear of all of its faults. So it was I remember saying to Kate quite early on, it's a warts and all communication with our customers.
Yeah. And that is, for me, the epitome of the ethical entrepreneur, right?
Yeah. And we've learned along the way. We've made so many mistakes. And when we do, we send out an email to our customers and say, hey, this might have been a bit misleading, and this is what we've learned. And I mean, we're doing that less and less now, but in those early days, we were learning because there was no one else out there to teach us. And so we've had to learn it all ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting point, because that fosters trust. Yet so many businesses don't do it.
Oh, I remember this one email very early on. I mean, we must have only been in business 6 months, and we had learned something along the way. And we wrote the email under the anxiety of when we sent it out. And we're hitting send, and we were together, and we're kind of almost holding hands. And 99% of those customers just came back and said, thank you so much.
Of course,
it was amazing. We only lost one customer in that process. And I think they weren't wanting that product probably anyway. And it was a real lesson for us, because from then on, it was just like, right, this is the right thing to do. As hard as it felt like for us at the time, it actually was a really good thing to do.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to your point about everything being new, and learning as you go. It doesn't have to be perfect. And if you get it wrong, it's okay, as long as you're open and transparent about it.
But I think that's so true. But I also think on the flip side, for those people who are receiving sustainable products and are working with sustainable products, like, I think we've also got to give each other a break on that, and know that we're not going to get something as perfect as plastic behaves within 3 years or 5 years. That there are going to be imperfections along the way, and we all, as a society, need to accept that things don't have to always be perfect. We've kind of fallen in love with this Instagrammable perfect life, and I think there are imperfections on this journey that we're on.
Well, that Instagrammable perfect life is not real.
Yeah, so that's sort of one of my things at the moment that I'm really trying to get behind, is just being a bit more accepting of that.
Yeah. So I think we've got time for one more question, and this is one that the audience are pretty familiar with by now. It's something I ask a lot of my speakers. So, as you're an ethical entrepreneur, a very successful one yourself, if you knew when you were starting out what you know now, what would you do differently?
Well, for starters, I would have started earlier. I wish I'd started this journey a bit sooner. So I would say to everyone, just start. If you've got that idea, we don't have any time to wait. So get going on that. I think do your research, definitely do your research, and be ready to go with the punches. There's just so many highs and lows on the journey that we've been on. And in the early days, we've made a lot of mistakes, and we're still making a lot of mistakes. But we've created a real mistake culture in our business. And so I think it took us quite a while to learn to lean into the mistakes. And now we're like, oh, we've made a mistake. How are we going to learn from this? But in the early days, we'd sort of go, oh, we've made a mistake, and take us a while to pick ourselves up from it. So I think to really lean into your mistakes and your learnings, and know that you can use those to grow and to be better. I think that was a lesson we learned, and it's been an amazing lesson to learn.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Those were some really great Great insights and practical tips that I'm sure many of us in the audience, including me, can take away with us. I obviously don't produce any products, but all of your tips around, just the way that you run your operations and your day to day, in terms of your office culture and inspiring others to do things differently too, is absolutely something I can take away and use in my business.
Yeah.
So if any, start small,
Yeah,
absolutely.
just start small with one thing.
Yeah. So if any of you are building or already have a product-based business, waste is obviously a huge consideration. I hope you found today's discussion helpful in terms of tackling some of that waste and designing it out. I certainly have. And if that includes reconsidering your packaging, go ahead and check out Better Packaging Co. at betterpackaging.com. Tomorrow we're talking organics with the CEO of New Zealand's largest organic certification company. So don't miss it. I'll see you then.
Thank you. Bye.